Hello and welcome to the West Asia Post. I am Radi Francis, and over the next half hour I'll get you all the latest developments from this region that I call my home, West Asia. Our top story is from Israel, where new reforms granting Israel's executive branch more power over its judiciary have created an uproar. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is facing backlash from all sides as he continues to seek his proposed reforms. Let's take a look.
Massive protests, opposition up in arms, rising inflation, and amidst all this, a bid to implement reforms opposed by many. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has clearly invited trouble. In the latest, the newly formed right-wing government of Israel has made it clear that it will move ahead with reforms aimed at overhauling the country's judicial system. Ever since Netanyahu came to power, constitutional changes have been a centerpiece of his government's agenda. The reforms introduced contain provisions that weaken the country's Supreme Court. They grant legislators the power to pass laws struck down by the country's apex court. The reforms also give the government greater power over the appointment of judges and further limit the independence of government legal advisors.
I am convinced that after the important and in-depth discussion in the Constitutional Committee, we will complete legislating the reforms in a way that will correct what needs correcting, will totally protect individual rights, and will restore the public's faith in the justice system that so much requires this reform.
Israel's President Isaac Herzog warned against the historic constitutional crisis caused by the agenda for reforms.
We are in the grips of a profound disagreement that is tearing our nation apart. This conflict worries me deeply, as it worries many across Israel and the Jewish diaspora.
From Israel's top legal officials to opposition leaders to citizens, dissent is widespread and unanimous in opposing the proposed measures.
We came here to fight for the democracy. And we would like to say that the current coalition in Israel would like to change the regime to make us like a dark regime in the world, and we will not accept it and will fight for this democracy.
I came here to demonstrate against the anti-democratic steps of the new governments in Israel. They are trying to destroy the democratic structure of the Israeli state. They are working against the Article of Independence that is the basis of the Israeli democracy, and are trying with their draconic rules to destroy what Ben-Gurion has started here, and this can be the start of the end of the Jewish state as we know it.
Israel's former Prime Minister and leader of the opposition, Yair Lapid, too seems to be upping the ante. He reportedly met with the chief of a labor organization, Histadrut Union, hoping to win the support of the nation's most powerful labor boss. The critics see the reforms as too interventionist in the process of lawmaking, while Netanyahu and his allies see the changes as a way to ease the process of governance and recalibrate an alleged imbalance between the country's executive and judicial arms. According to state media reports, despite the uproar, the coalition lawmakers are willing to make only small cosmetic adjustments to the laws. The political rumbles and protests come at a time when the West Asian nation is reeling under record-high inflation. West Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
Before moving forward, let's take a look at what else is making the headlines across the region.
1 killed and dozens injured in a stampede that broke out outside football stadium in Iraq hours before the Gulf Cup final. Israel's top court rules that a member of Premier Benjamin Netanyahu's new government cannot serve as minister due to a recent tax evasion conviction. Iran warns that the EU will shoot itself in the foot by listing Revolutionary Guards as a terrorist entity. This comes a day after the European Parliament voted to urge Brussels to list Iran's IRGC as a terror group. Israel releases the second longest serving Palestinian prisoner after serving 4 decades in prison. He was arrested in 1983 for killing an Israeli soldier in Syria. Syria agrees to resume imports from Saudi Arabia after years of strained bilateral ties. The Syrian war had soured relations between the two countries.
Now let's shift the focus to Lebanon, the country I'm currently standing in. In 2020, Beirut port blast killed more than 200 people. The families of the victims continued to demand justice, but it looks like they are running out of patience. Last week, protesters demanding a probe into the explosion have threatened to attack Lebanon's Justice Palace. We tell you all the details.
On August 4, 2020, a blast at the Beirut port killed 220 people and injured 6,000 others. The explosion devastated the entire neighborhood, displacing around 30,000 people. Some 3 years later, the victims' families continue to demand justice. The anguished citizens threw rocks at the Beirut Justice Palace and burned tires outside the building last week. Family members of the victims protested the alleged interference of the police in the blast probe. They claim they've become targets of the judiciary, while the senior officials responsible have still not been held accountable for the devastating explosion.
This corrupt state is demanding the relatives of the victims for questioning. Where are those who blew up Beirut port? Where are they? Why don't you summon them? Why didn't you bring those who have arrest warrants against them?
Around a dozen people were summoned for questioning after last week's protests.
I was summoned for questioning today, and we are proudly coming. We are proud of what we did, and we have nothing to be afraid of. Yes, we broke the Justice Palace, but blame is on them. Shame on them to call upon our parents. This is what we blame them for. We will go inside the police station and follow the legal procedures, and what will happen, will happen.
After the protest, the authorities detained William Noun on January 13th. Noun lost his brother in the blast. His detention drew crowds to the police station until his release.
We will appear before the courts. We demand the law to be applied. We are not above the law, we are under the law, but on the condition that everyone is under the law. We come to the police who are applying the law as per the judiciary's demand, and we go as the law says, but on the condition that the law applies to everyone, simply.
Noun's detention also prompted a stern rebuke from Maronite patriarch Bechara Boutros Al-Rai, who is Lebanon's most senior Christian cleric.
The detention of our dear William Noun, wounded in the core of his heart because of the loss of his brother in the Beirut blast, shows that the judiciary has become a tool for vengeance, malice and hatred, and that security agencies are carrying out police state practice. Aren't they ashamed of themselves after they requested the arrest of this young activist who is demanding his right, the search of his house and his imprisonment, not caring for his tragedies and the tragedies of his family?
Families say politically affiliated detainees could also be released, and those behind the blast would continue to roam free. The explosion was caused by hundreds of tons of chemicals kept in poor conditions. The chemical had been shipped to Lebanon in 2013 and stored improperly at the warehouse. A handful of senior political and security officials knew of its presence and the threat it posed to the city. Bitar, the probe's second investigating judge, sought to interrogate top figures in the Shiite Muslim Amal movement, which is an ally of the Iran-backed and heavily armed Hezbollah movement. He had also sought to question the then Sunni Prime Minister, but the senior officials who were called resisted being questioned. They said they had the immunity or Bitar lacked authority to prosecute them. They denied any wrongdoing. The probe has been paralyzed since the judges in a court that must rule on complaints against Bitar had retired. The issue remains unresolved. Bitar's predecessor, Judge Fadi Sawan, was also removed in 2021 following high-level political pressure. For many, the failure of the probe into the blast reflects the impunity of the elite that has overseen decades of corrupt rule. It even led to a financial collapse in 2019 and the worst crisis since the 1975 to 1990 civil war. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And now shifting focus to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where a prominent preacher is facing death sentence over using social media platforms to spread allegedly hostile news about the kingdom. Listen in.
Imagine a WhatsApp forward or a tweet gets you the death penalty. This may sound unreal, but this is exactly what is happening to Saudi Arabia's 65-year-old Awad Al-Qurani. A prominent pro-reform law professor, Al-Qurani, who is facing the death penalty. He has been accused of having a Twitter account and using WhatsApp to share news considered hostile to the kingdom. They say the charges are based on the law professor's admission that he used every opportunity to express his opinions on social media. He has apparently also admitted to praising the Muslim Brotherhood on WhatsApp. Al-Qurani's alleged use of Telegram and creation of a Telegram account was also included in allegations. According to media reports, the professor was arrested in September 2017. Since then, Saudi prosecutors have been seeking the death penalty against him. The Saudi courts are yet to make a formal judgment. Al-Qurani's son Nasser brought the details of his charges to light.
ونحن في ديرتنا غالبا نعرف كل من يعمل في الحكومة هم من المنطقة لكن هؤلاء لم نعرفهم لا شكلا ولا صوتا ولم ندخل منزلنا إلا ونحن احترقنا داخليا من طول انتظار دام أكثر من 3 ساعات وعندما دخلنا المنزل رأينا العبث في البيت وكأنه وحوش انقضت عليه ثم أخذوا والدي بالعنوة وقيل لنا 2 يوم وسيعود وها نحن الآن أكتوبر 2022 ولا زال المنزل يفتقد الوالد.
Nasser fled the kingdom last year and is living in the UK, where he is seeking asylum protection. Al-Qurani has been portrayed in Saudi-controlled media as a dangerous preacher. But his supporters claim that he is a well-regarded intellectual with as many as 2 million Twitter followers. Crackdown on dissenters in Saudi Arabia is not new. Human rights advocates living in exile have warned that authorities in the kingdom are engaged in a new and severe crackdown on dissidents. Al-Qurani's prosecution documents show that the use of social media inside the kingdom was criminalized since the beginning of Prince Mohammed's reign. Last year, Leeds PhD student Salma Al-Shahab received a 34-year sentence. The mother of 2 was convicted for having a Twitter account and for following and retweeting dissidents and activists. Another woman, Noura Al-Qahtani, was sentenced to 45 years in prison for using Twitter. The clampdown comes at a time when the Saudi government and state-controlled investors have increased their financial stake in social media platforms. Investments from Saudi Arabia have flown to Twitter, Facebook, and even entertainment companies like Disney. Experts believe that the recent investments are to project worldwide an image of Saudi Arabia investing in technology, modern infrastructure, sport and entertainment. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And now let's go to Syria, where a landmark decree has been issued by the Syrian president. It aims to regulate the protection and care for children with unknown parentage. Now, this is a first in the region. Let's take a look.
Syria, a war-torn country that has its laws mostly influenced by the surrounding Islamic nations. A country where the rights of women are mostly confined to paper with little to zero practical application. In such circumstances, breaking stereotypes, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad issued a legislative decree No. 2, which pertains to the protection and care of children of unknown parentage. This is the first time in Syria a decree has been issued to regulate the care of such children. Let's just also tell you who exactly is the beneficiary of this decree. Children of unknown mother and father, children of unknown father but abandoned by their known mothers. The next question arises, what will this order do? This decree guarantees children of unknown parentage fair social and human care. It grants them a safe life while protecting them from exploitation, neglect and loss. The decree also defines the procedure to handle the situation when an abandoned child is found or is handed over to the police. The new order by the Syrian president requires police to transfer the children to a government hospital for medical examination. The child would then be transferred to a care home. This is where the child would be raised, educated and protected. The decree guarantees the upbringing of children of unknown parentage in specialized care homes based in the countryside of Damascus. Syria already has a law for children of unknown parentage. In the year 1969, children of unknown parentage were recognized as Syrian citizens. Decree No. 276 was issued in the same year, and it stated that anyone born inside or outside the country to a Syrian Arab father or anyone born in the country to a Syrian Arab mother and whose legal family relationship to his father has not been established is considered a Syrian Arab. The new law further lays down the process of care that children of unknown parentage need. Finding a baby might be easy in Syria, but the process to legally become foster parents is not. There are various authorities in this field. Each authority has its own orphanages. There are other legal alternative ways to become foster parents. They are called guarantee or alternative care. A family willing to take in a child must write a pledge in the presence of 4 witnesses. The pledge includes agreeing to hand the child over to his relatives in the event of their appearance. The authorities then examine the house and ascertain that the family is able to raise a child for them to become foster parents. Syria is a country which is marred by war and attacks. Activists say that helpless parents abandon their children. In most cases, parents hope that the child would find a better home and life elsewhere. Official records show that between 2000 and 2021, it was in 2002 that Syria reported the most cases of children of unknown parentage. While in 2021, Turkey NGO, the Orphan Foundation, estimated the number of orphans, including abandoned children, in Syria to be more than 1.2 million. Bureau Report WION World is One.
That's all from my side for this week and this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week with some more interesting stories from all across the globe. Until then, stay safe. This is Radi Francis in Beirut signing off. Keep on watching WION World is One.